and welcome back, RosterWatch Nation. It's your friendly neighborhood Trashman, and this is the Garbage Grab, where we talk about all things unsavory in the world of fantasy football. Maybe not unsavory, but less mentioned, less attractive for the most part, at least option-wise. But today we're just going to be talking about the goings-on over the long weekend, the Labor Day weekend. I hope you had a good one. And what I like to call a fantasy fallout, if you will. A lot of things happened, so let's go ahead and get started. Tevin Coleman is listed behind Matt Breida on the 49ers unofficial depth chart right now. I know, myself included, was hoping that Coleman would be the 1A, the Breida's 1B going into the season, but it does not look like that is the case. You know, it might just be semantics, but there often is some credence to these depth charts. There's often some credence to these depth charts. Breida had a better camp overall. Tevin Coleman, his camp was nothing to write home about. We tend to think of him as the more athletic back, the more versatile back. But Breida's been with the team longer. He might be a better downhill runner, slightly, than Coleman. And it looks like he's going to get the first crack for the 49ers this week. I think they'll both get double-digit touches, though, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball as poorly as he is right now. So I wouldn't worry too much about starting either of these guys in your fantasy formats. But it does look like Breida is the 1A to Tevin Coleman's 1B as of right now. Up next, Giovanni Bernard has been signed to a 2-year, $10.3 million extension. Normally, I'd say that really isn't that big a deal, but for a running back who, for all intents and purposes, looked like he was on the decline, it's a pretty good deal, meaning that maybe they have more use for him moving forward. We hope they do, at least those of us who are in PPR leagues. He's going to be the change of pace behind Joe Mixon. He could get a lot more work in the early part of the season, especially with AJ Green being out with coming off of ankle surgery. So he might be the second option behind Tyler Boyd as far as the passing game goes. Tyler Eifert could be just as well if he can actually stay on the field and stay healthy for any length of time. Up next, it's our boy, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not going to be changing that picture for him, at least until he signs something. And it looks like he is very close to doing so. Adam Schefter reported that the Cowboys are very close to reaching an extension with Ezekiel Elliott in time to start the NFL season. And I know there are a lot of people who are wiping off some brows that have been dabbled with sweat because we really weren't sure, and still we really aren't totally sure that he's going to sign before the season starts, but it does look like that will be the case. So everybody who reached for Tony Pollard, it may have been all for naught, as Ezekiel Elliott does look like he's going to start the season as the lead back for the Cowboys. Although Pollard could get quite a bit of run behind him, he's just not going to be. He's not going to be the bulwark that we thought he might be. Up next, DK Metcalf for the Seattle Seahawks, the Wookiee receiver. He's recovering well from his knee scope that he had 2 weeks ago, and is expected to play in week 1 against the Bengals, barring some sort of setback. it looks like Metcalf and Jerron Brown actually are going to be outside for the Seahawks with Tyler Lockett playing the slot. So those of you who took a chance on DK Metcalf in Dynasty formats and otherwise, redraft formats too, it looks like he will get the start for the Seahawks against the Bengals. And he looks like he'll probably be the number 2 option in the passing game if they actually pass the ball, which I'm not sure is going to be much of the case, at least for the early goings of the season. Russell Wilson is expected to have a down year, I guess, for Russell Wilson. After that, we have Jimmy Graham of the Green Bay Packers. Jimmy Graham's had a finger injury that has kept him limited for some time, but he was upgraded to full for Tuesday's practice. So it looks like you are going to have Jimmy Graham this Thursday for fantasy. He'll largely be touchdown dependent, it looks like, but Aaron Rodgers likes to throw a lot of touchdowns. So he's somebody you could very well use, especially if you are also an owner of the next guy I'm going to talk about, which I actually am in one league. I own both of these guys. And that is Trey Burton, who has remained limited in Monday's and Tuesday's practices with a groin injury. This is kind of concerning because the Chicago Bears will be facing the Green Bay Packers, and it'll be a Thursday night game. It'll be the first game of the season, and it's coming up real quickly, so you want to have your players ready to go, and it is not at all apparent that Burton will be ready to go. So if you are a Trey Burton owner, be prepared to have somebody else to put into your tight end position if he cannot play, and Jimmy Graham might be a good option there. Up next, one of RosterWatch's favorite sons, Christian Kirk. He said on Monday that he will serve as the Cardinals punt returner this season, which only raises his already increasing value in fantasy, especially if you allow for return points in your leagues. It's just another notch on his belt. So Christian Kirk, he's a guy that you want to, I'm not saying you want to reach for, but you want to make sure he's on a few of your rosters if you own multiple teams, which I'm sure you do if you're a member of RosterWatch Nation, because we like to dominate on various arenas. Up next, we have the man of the hour, Melvin Gordon, who still does not plan to report to the Chargers for week 1. He'll forego $330,000 for that week, which sounds absurd to most of us, almost all of us, but not as concerning for a multimillionaire like Gordon. The Chargers have given him permission to seek a trade, but they are not dealing with him anymore at this point. So, Melvin Gordon owners, looks like we're in between a rock and a hard place. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson will, unless something miraculous happens in the next few days, be a tandem in the backfield for the Chargers. Look for Eckler to have a few more touches than Jackson, but Jackson will be in, and perhaps more in on goal line carries. So both of them will have value. Eckler obviously has more PPR value than Jackson, but Jackson can be flexed in redraft leagues because it looks like it's going to be probably a 60-40 timeshare there. And Gordon, as far as he is concerned, he has to return for week 10 to maintain eligibility, but we may not see him before then, so I guess you're just gonna have to prepare for that. If you haven't drafted Don't draft him if you can avoid him, unless you can get him really late. Otherwise, stay away from him. It's no good. Someone who does look like they are good is Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. He told reporters on Monday that he believes he is good to go against the Giants on Sunday, which is good news for Amari Cooper owners worldwide, especially now that it looks like Zeke is going to be back, taking some pressure off of Cooper so he can get open more often, open for your fantasy team. So if you had him, you're worried about starting him, worry no more. Looks like he's good to go for this Sunday against the Giants. Some interesting fantasy news. Well, at least interesting to Trashman like myself. Due to numerous injuries in the Texans' tight end core, Jordan Aikens is now the de facto starter for the Houston Texans at the tight end position. You know, the Texans' tight end in the past has had reasonable value. I'm not sure how valuable he'd be at this point, but again, if you have someone like a Trey Burton, or if you're just looking for maybe a streamer at the tight end position that maybe has some upside that you really don't know what's going to happen, but he's on a team that likes to throw the ball a lot, this is your chance. In any case, I think Aikens is worth picking up if you have a deep bench, because who knows, he could turn up for you and for the Texans. Let's talk about the Redskins for a minute. Darrius Guice, second-year running back, although he might as well be a rookie because he didn't play last year. Coach Jay Gruden said on Monday that Guice will get more carries than Adrian Peterson. I don't know if he was just talking about for this week or the rest of the season, but that's great news for Guice owners, as we weren't quite sure if Adrian Peterson was going to be the starter, or at least the guy who was going to get the bulk of the carries this season for the Redskins, at least until they ease Guice in. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case from the beginnings of the season. Guice looks like he's going to be the guy who's going to get to eat more, and he should, because he's an amazing running back when healthy. I compared him last year going into the league like a Marshawn Lynch. He's hungry. He goes into beast mode. He's fast. He's elusive, but he also hits you hard. There's going to be somebody that can turn up for you on Sundays. So if you still haven't drafted yet, Guice is going to be somebody you can focus on and expect to produce for you in fantasy. Sticking with the Redskins, Mr. Concussion himself, Jordan Reed, remains in the concussion protocol. It's Reed's 7th concussion, or at least 7th reported concussion. So it wouldn't be surprised if he misses a reasonable amount of time. In Reed's stead, as usual, will be Vernon Davis, who's taken over whenever Reed has been injured in the past, and he's done pretty well doing so. So, if you have someone like a Trey Burton and he doesn't play, or you're looking for a streamer at the tight end position, Vernon Davis could be a guy you look to if Jordan Reed does not return from concussion protocol in time for the Redskins' first game. The last little bit of news I'm going to get to today concerns an old friend of ours, AJ Green, who remains in a walking boot as of this afternoon. It's been a month since Green had ankle surgery, and the fact that he's still in a walking boot does not bode well for his chances of returning anytime soon. Week 3 was the most optimistic estimate for a return for Green. Had maybe too optimistic an estimate for Green. So, if you own Tyler Boyd, kudos to you. If you own Giovanni Bernard, kudos to you as well. Because it looks like those guys are going to get quite a bit of run while AJ Green is out. And it looks like he could be out for some time. It doesn't look like they're going to put him on injured reserve, so that's some good news. But he's out indefinitely, and there's really nothing more you can say about it. So don't depend on him in fantasy right now. Find another option. We'll be talking about some more options later in the week as the beginning of the season gets underway. Guys, get excited because it's gonna hurt from here on out. It's gonna hurt and it's gonna feel good. It's gonna be bittersweet for all of us. And hopefully, through the hard times and the good, we're gonna end up with shiny fantasy trophies on our shelves, or at least crisp $2 bills in our pockets at the end of the season. Anyways, that's it for me. I'm the Trashman. This has been the Garbage Grab on behalf of RosterWatch.com, where we have all the fantasy information you'll ever need to dominate your league from the draft throughout the playoffs. I'm talking championships here. And anyways, until next time, be ready.